A very good morning to you all. Today in this video we'll be discussing the Hindu Editorial Analysis. Today is 19 June 2020. There are 4 articles. The first article is regarding Galwan Valley, Postscript to Tragedy. The second article is regarding Make in India, how we can overcome from the Chinese products. The third article is regarding India UN Security Council. The fourth article is on hike of petrol and diesel prices. Before I begin, I am Prashant. I welcome you all to Educational Stuff by Prashant Konala. If you are first to my channel, I request you to subscribe so that you can receive the further updates. This is a cartoon of the day. The Tamil Nadu government is asking the central government for the funds to curb the situation, that is pandemic situation, and to raise the economy. The first article is regarding the Galwan Postscript to Tragedy. The night of June 15, 2020 will go down in the annals of Indian history as one stepped in tragedy. 20 army personnel, including the commanding officer of 16th Bihar Regiment, lost their lives at the hands of Chinese troops in the Galwan Valley of Ladakh. The incident represented a water-washed in India's relationship with China and marks the end of a 45-year chapter which saw no armed confrontation involving loss of lives on the line of actual control. The period of bilateral relations that was inaugurated with former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's visit to China in December 1988 also drew to a close in the darkness of that fateful Monday night. The incident had deeply shaken the nation. It had been assumed all along that there would be de-escalation of the confrontation between India and Chinese troops in the areas of the Corps commander level talks between the two sides on June 6. That the things went terribly wrong is more than the evident. What is important and significance of what had happened in Galwan Valley on June 15th? Can it be a business as usual with China after this? That would seem unlikely given the manner in which the whole calculus of relationships have been disturbed by this incident. From 1959 to 2020, nothing on the scale was witnessed even in the run-up to the conflict between the two countries in 1962. In October 1959, there was a face-off between India and Chinese troops at Konkala. 9 Indian soldiers were killed and 3 soldiers were detained then, including the legendary Karam Singh, the leader of the group, who recorded after his release the ill treatment he and his colleagues have been subjected to all the hands of these captors. It was after Konkala the nation's mood turned against the Chinese in full measure in the atmosphere already complicated by the revolt in Tibet and the granting of asylum to Dalai Lama in March 1959. There was a very little room for the recent negotiated settlement being reached on the boundary questions between the two countries after this juncture. The rest is a history. The conflict of 1962 inflicted a gaping wounds on the national soul and prestige from which India took time to recover. Is the country at a similar junction today? 2020 is not 1959. India and China are very different places in the history as of nations today. They've grown immensely in the strength and stature on the world stage, and the relations have substance and diversity of the content in a manner absent in the 1950s. To assume that the India is to steep descent from here towards the full-blown conflict with China may therefore be an oversimplification. Both countries must stop that fall despite the terse messaging of the statements issued in the two capitals after the incident. The statements are mutually actuatory, with each country's disclaiming responsibility for the tragic turn of events. The mood is very somber. Accessing choice carefully. A cool-headed thinking is the need for the hour. All that comes a time when the COVID-19 crisis demands a full attention of the government. The economy needs to recover from the stagnancy of the last few months. The tensions with the Pakistan persist, and the dispute over the Nepal territory in the Lipulekh or Kalapani area has been the headline. There is a considerable turbulence generated by all this, even as we mourn the loss of Indian personnel in the Galwan Valley, and reincarnated battlefront with China cannot be blindly embraced. However, much of nation's pride and prestige are at stake. The implications of such a choice must be carefully assessed. The instant gratification that an eye for an eye may provide, because we have scores to settle, has the attendant complications. Strong political direction, mature deliberation, and coherence are keys to handling the situation. The army can make tactical adjustments and maneuvers to deter the Chinese, but a comprehensive China strategy and its determination should devolve on those tasked with the national security policy in the highest echelons of the Government of India under the direction of the Prime Minister. The responsibility of effective strategy communication too starts to rest here. A clearer enunciation of the circumstances surrounding Chinese transgressions in Sikkim and Ladakh in the last few months would have been helpful in guiding the scattershot public debate. However, the early warning signs of the seriousness of the situation that could have been diffused at the military, diplomatic, and political level so that the disaster could have been averted. We must draw the right conclusion that can help us in future. The opposition must not play politics on this issue. Turning to the future. It is the future we must turn. It is India that should take the initiative to insist on a timely and early clarification of the line of actual control. Pockets of the different alignments as pursued by each side have been clearly identified, and these areas demilitarized by both sides through joint agreement pending a settlement of the boundary. At the same time, India must stand resolute and firm in the defense of the territory in all four sectors of the borders. Contacts between the two militaries, joint exercises and exchanges of visits of senior commanders should be scaled down for the foreseeable future. A border settlement is not envisaged in a short or medium term. Bilateral ties or relations in other areas will under considerable strain, and soft landings cannot be expected. No leadership level contact between the top leaders of the two countries can be envisaged in the near term, and there is no need for an haste of that front. Diplomatic challenges must continue to be open and should not be fettered in any way, because their smooth operability is vital in the current situation. India businesses in China and China businesses operations in India can expect the going to be tougher than before. The scenario of trade and investment could be encounter similar obstacles. In any case, in the areas that impinge on national security, as in the cyber field and in telecommunication and in technologies that enable spying and surveillance, 5G for instance, stringent controls, exclusions and clampdowns can be expected in the treatment of the entry of Chinese companies in India, taking a long view. But beyond all this is the outside world. India's leverage and balancing power with Indo-Pacific and the world beyond stems from the strong democratic credentials, the dynamism of its economy and its leading role in multilateral institutions, and the strategic advantage of its maritime geography, an asset possessed by a few other nations and which must be deployed much more effectively to counterbalance the Chinese ingress into the oceanic space that surrounds us. The events in Galwan Valley should wake up a call to many of Indian Asian friends and partners, enabling a high resolution emphasizing of Chinese aggressiveness. This also is an opportunity for India to align its interests much more strongly and unequally with the voice of US as a principal strategic partner, and infuse more energy into the relationships with Japan, Australia and Asian countries. The time has also come for India to reconsider its stand of rejoining or joining the regional comprehensive economic partnership. If India is to disengage from economic involvement with China and build the capacities and capabilities it needs in manufacturing and in supply chains network closer home, It cannot be a prisoner for a short term. It is a time to boldly talk long views in the area as also on the South Asia policy. Good neighborhood relationships are crucial for national stability and well-being. This is regarding the Galwan and the postscript to this tragedy. The next article: Can India decouple itself from Chinese manufacturing? The border clashes with China and the COVID-19 pandemic had reignited questions about India's dependence on Chinese manufacturing. India's imports from China in 2019 to 2020 reached $65 billion out of $81 billion two-way trade. Is the pandemic. The Union, as the Union Minister Nitin Gadkari said the last month, a blessing is disguise for Indian manufacturing. Will companies be able to move deeply integrated supply chains out of India, and if so, will they choose India? Make in India initiative was a good opportunity for us to get our manufacturing sector on a track. But the thing over here is that we have to take advantage of what we had actually planned. In the past 5 years, what we have seen is that the dependency on the China has actually gone up. It's very strange situation that we have today, that India is exporting a lot of raw materials and intermediate products and importing finished products from China, and of course the certain key intermediates such as active pharmaceutical ingredients. So we really are on a strong footing because our dependence on China is huge. This needs to change significantly if we think over in the terms of this whole discussion, that this is going on if there is a relocation of the industries here in India. What we are seeing in terms of India's trade engagement is the fact that the variety of reasons India's dependence on the imports is getting to be localized, in the sense that there is not a wide diversification of countries from which India is sourcing its imports. For example, if you look at the critical medical supplies which India has been importing for frontline healthcare workers in COVID-19 battle, most of these come from China. China is one of the top sources, but on the other hand, there isn't a very widely diversified source of countries from which India can actually import these. This essentiality means that aside from China, there are probably 3 or 4 countries of the world on which India dependence is increasing. China is by and large spread across different concentrations. To that extent, it's going to be difficult choice for India to get out of this dependence and search for alternative partners. This is regarding, can India decouple itself from Chinese manufacturing? Yet another article on India and UN Security Council win. India's election to the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member is a significant diplomatic victory for the country, which has been pushing long for reforms at global institutions. The victory wasn't unexpected, as India was only contestant for the Asia Pacific seat, but the Indian foreign policy establishment took no choices, as election could be done by the secret ballot at the UN General Assembly, and 2/3 of the votes were needed for the victory. India secured the seat with 184 votes in the 193 strong General Assembly. Mexico, Norway and Ireland were also elected as non-permanent members, while Mexico won the Latin American seat uncontested. Norway and Ireland emerged victorious from 3-way contest for the Western Europe and other group seat. Canada failed to win enough votes in the group. Neither Kenya nor Djibouti, which were contesting to seat from the Africa, won 2/3 majority. They will face another vote. India sought to support of members countries by highlighting its commitment to multilateralism and reforms ahead of the votes. India has also launched a campaign brochure which highlighted its demand for transparency in mandates for UN peacekeeping missions and push for the India-led comprehensive convention on the international terrorism, and call for the joint effort for UN reform and expansion of the Security Council. A new orientation for the reformed multilateral system, that is norms, as laid by the External Minister S. Jaishankar, would be India's overall objective during the two-third tenure that will bring next year. Achieving this would depend on how India could diplomacy in the global body, build alliances and raise issues that go beyond the interests of the Big Five. India had long been of the view that the structure of United Nations Security Council doesn't reflect the realities of the 21st century. It has also got increasing support from member countries for its push for reforms, but the 5 permanent members of Security Council have resisted these attempts. The COVID-19 pandemic has also already shaken up the global order and sharpened the rivalry between the US and China. It has also opened up fresh debates on strengthening multilateralism and multilateral institutions. In this context, the challenges before India are many. The Security Council is one of the most important multilateral decision-making bodies where the contours of global geopolitical are often drawn. This is regarding India is at a high table on India's UN Security Council win. The next article is Fleecing Fuel Users. In just 12 straight days, India's state-owned oil marketing companies have raised the retail prices of petrol and diesel by 6 rupees 55 paise and 7 rupees 4 paise a litre respectively. A consumer in Delhi would have ended up spending about 9% more on a petrol and an Indian Oil Corporation fuel on Thursday, while those driving diesel vehicles would have found the fuel cost had risen a little more than by 10%. Over the same period, the prices of the Brent crude oil future, which contributes a fourth to the value of India's crude basket, declined by about 3%. If one drills down the price build-up dashed by Indian Oil Corporation petrol freight inclusive base price as of June 16, in Delhi it was around 22 rupees 44 paise, a significant 23% higher than before, that is 18 rupees 28 paise. The refineries embarked on the latest round of the price increase. It is disconcerting that between the OMCs, which had frozen their daily resetting of the prices for almost 12 weeks following the reduction of March 16th, and the central and state governments, automobile fuels have been targeted for milking revenue. The build-up down shows the excise duty levied by the centre and the VAT collected by the Delhi government together constituted two-thirds of 76 rupees 73 paise pump price of petrol as of June 16th. One of the face of it is the OMC's decision to resume daily price resetting would appear to be in board conformity with pricing deregulation that centre has intermittently committed to ever since the government of the day freed up the petrol prices in 2010. However, the timing of the recent moves to raise the levies and retail prices by the government and fuel marketers respectively is at odds with the logic at the point when the country is grappling with the impact of the pandemic. The aim of maximizing takings from the fuel products to offset shortfall in other revenue streams can only bear fruit if petrol and diesel offtake remain unaffected and raising the fuel bill doesn't end up depleting household consumption budgets. With public transportation yet to restart fully in most urban areas and operating with the tight restrictions and at lower frequencies, even when some services have resumed, most commuters continue to have little choice but to use personal vehicles. Also, with the lockdown imposed to contain the spread of COVID-19 have severely hit businesses' activities at all levels. On the onus is on the governments, both the centre and state, to facilitate the resumption of economic activity in ever of the manner possible. Given that the diesel is of the primary fuel for the vast and essential road freight sectors, every incremental additional to haulage costs ends up in dampening both the transport industry and wider economic revival. It is imperative that the authorities remove the speed breakers on the path back to normalcy. This is regarding the revenues from the fuels come at the expenses of the people relying entirely on the private transport. The fleecing price users on the hike of petrol and diesel prices. Before I conclude, this is my Facebook link. You can join. I have given the description in the I have given the link in the description, so that you can just click that link and join me. Before I conclude, I request you all to subscribe, and thanks for joining me. Have a great day.